Alright everyone, we start off today talking about all things Trump indictment, starting off though with I think the most important thing until later today when Trump goes into the court and there will be cameras that are whistling away and clicking all over the place. Everyone will have their phones up and you can't protest too close to the courthouse, by the way, so don't get feted. Don't go with the glowing ones who is saying, "Hello, young man, you look like a strapping young man. Doesn't it chap your ass, this kangaroo court business going on? Why don't you take your mask off and take this Molotov and we'll go and teach him a lesson. We'll teach him who's boss." Don't get feted. There will be glowy attempts probably in New York and possibly elsewhere in the country today, so don't get yourself killed or arrested. Anyway, the polling is very interesting here. I think it was fairly predictable that at least among Republicans, who are the ones that vote mainly in the Republican primaries, Trump would get a boost from the perception that he's being persecuted. It's a perception that I share. I think it's quite clear. But even if someone's more on the fence, I think until recently, a lot of Republicans felt that, yeah, you know, there's a political witch hunt after Trump of some sort, but they weren't quite at their limit. And so a lot of them were softer support, or they're more neutral. They hadn't chosen whether they're going to be on the Trump train in 24. I think this has swung quite a few of them. In fact, this would represent a couple million voters in that direction. Look at the new polling, link in the description, from RCP. Not archived, of course. It's just their polling aggregate page. They've got their line chart back, by the way. They finally got enough polling to actually have a chart. Donald Trump is swiftly rising back up to his all-time highs in the mid-50s. Right now, he's 22 points ahead just in the aggregate. Just for clarification, 2 days ago it was at 16, and a few days before that it was closer to 14. He has risen up considerably in the wake of the indictment. There are 4 polls entirely from after the indictment. All of them show him with a fairly substantial, and it's well within a margin of error actually in the aggregate, a significant lead over DeSantis, and the rest of the field doesn't matter because they're all in the single digits. You've got one poll, ironically, that this is the Trafalgar poll, this is part of the one being aggregated, that showed Liz Cheney at 10 points. Of course, that one eliminates most of the other individuals that are also runs, like Christie and Noem, so if they're not on the list, yeah, she gobbles a little from Pence, I suppose. Yahoo has Trump at 52. Trafalgar has him at 56. Reuters at 48, and Insider Advantage at 57. Now, they're being aggregated for a reason. It's because their methodology is not completely screwy. Now, polls can't give you real numbers, but when you're talking about a gap of 30 points within those polls and rising, and an overall aggregated gap over the course of more than 10 polls of 22 points, it's somewhere in that ballpark. The numbers are not capable of being skewed that much to presume that anyone else is leading. It's well outside, it's several margins of error outside of the margin of error. So it's impossible. Trump has gotten a boost. It appears to be 5-6 points. It's still rising, so it might be higher in the next couple of days as you get more polling. It could turn out to be a 15-point jump, and we're just seeing the beginning of it. It wouldn't even be terribly surprising. I think it'll even out at about 10. Well, that gives Trump the nomination. Now we go forward into an unknown process in which 250 years of legal precedent have gone bye-bye. That's already happened, simply by indicting Trump. Now we await today, gets a rain. We're not sure if his mugshot will be released actually, or if it'll be released speedily. I hope it's released instantaneously. I hope so because, I mean, it would break the internet with the memes that would be posted. We're not sure about the gag order thing. We're not sure exactly who's claiming that at this point. The judge does not appear to have claimed he was going to gag Trump. The Krasensteins believe that he will, and they're usually wrong, so I'll be skeptical until it happens. Although I would point out that if the judge doesn't gag him, Trump will make wacky comments about the trial ad nauseum while it goes on. Gobbling up more of the news cycle in the process. I bet the Democrats are begging him to issue a gag order. Anyway, going forward, there's not a whole lot of certainty in this whole process. One thing for sure, it is persecution though. We know this in part because of the plurality of charges. If you have a couple of slam dunk charges against a person, there's no need to stack charges. In fact, at both the federal and at the state level, they dissuade prosecutors from doing this. They strongly encourage that you do not dogpile charges. They say, look, if you feel the need to throw that many charges at a person, maybe you should re-examine whether they should be charged to begin with. Of course, he has been indicted through a grand jury process. The other part is that now Trump can put on a legal defense. This is no longer in grand jury territory where it's all prosecutorial evidence and exculpatory stuff can legally be excluded because you're simply trying to find out whether you need to have a trial in the first place. By the way, that does not actually breach Trump's constitutional rights. That's fairly routine. The idea is if you can't even get it past a grand jury, there's no chance that they're going to charge you with anything because the charges definitely won't stick. When you see, though, this dogpiling of charges as part of the sealed indictment, which we don't have anything from quite yet, it's probably because none of the charges are particularly certain to go through. If that happens, imagine the political fallout. They spend months prosecuting Trump. He gives them the exculpatory evidence that the grand jury didn't even get to see before deciding the charges were proper, and he hammers their case completely out of the ballpark, and he's found not guilty on every charge. Imagine that happens. Do you think he gets reelected on the power of being able to plausibly stand before the American public and tell every independent voter, look at what they tried to do to me, they fucking failed, they've been doing this for years, once again I win, haha. The system has clearly been upended. We need to stop this, you should elect me. I think he could be elected with that as part of his platform. Now, alternatively, since it is a New York jury that will be deciding the case, let's say they find him guilty on a bunch of charges. They literally throw him in a cell because they're nuts. Well, then you have probably considerable protests, number one, and you have to explain to the American people because simply being charged even with a felony doesn't keep you from running for office. Then you got to explain to the American people how you're having a fair election. And potentially, if that's prior to the GOP primaries culminating in their eventual candidate, how a person operating in the primary system can effectively be shut out of the race despite being frontrunner. It would destroy the Republicans if that happens. By the way, that might be the plan. The plan might be to try to knock out Trump legally, force him to inevitably lose in the primary process, thus angering enough Republicans to handicap their potential candidate. Let's say DeSantis really is squeaky clean. I would expect them to indict Trump in order to try to get a crippled DeSantis in there who can't win. That might be what they're going with. It might be shenanigans upon shenanigans at the moment. But we don't know. We have no clue what the fuck happens next because we've never done this before as a country. It's probably not going to be good, though. It will definitely be amusing and exciting, at least at times. I'm really hoping for the mugshot. That's what I want most of all. That's about all. Peace out.